Welcome to the Mystical Motherhood Podcast. This is Chelsea, and I want you to create a happy family. I use my background in Western and Eastern medicine, birth, and ancient yogic practices to help the modern mother learn how to live a healthier life and create conscious children. This is your guide to fertility, conception, pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and the early childhood years. Are you ready to live the life of your dreams? Welcome to Mystical Motherhood's bonus podcast for this week. I really wanted to go into a little bit more about my new book, Fertile, which will be coming out mid-2019, and some of the concepts in it. And it's all about how to awaken yourself as a mother in order to become a vessel or a sacred container to birth and create and then raise a higher caliber child in this world. And all the information I had in this book, I actually didn't know when I had my babies. And so I learned a lot from writing it. It has a lot to do with sacred geometry, alchemy, mathematics, harmony, the mind, the body, and the spirit. And in this episode today, I really want to go into alchemy and the process of awakening. If you have any questions, you can always write into mysticalmotherhood.com. And if you ever want to work with me privately, please reach out to me via email at www.mysticalmotherhood.com or mysticalmotherhood@gmail.com. So I'm going to jump right into the process of awakening. I work with women on a one-on-one level, helping them to either create a happier family or consciously conceive. And a lot of women come to me with issues around fertility or, completely changing their life. And as we work together, they begin to go through the process of awakening. Their intuition increases, their dreams become more vibrant and alive. The colors around them become meaningful. And in a lot of ways, God or spirit begins to talk to them in these magnificent ways. And I remember when I was going through the process of awakening myself, I felt so lost because I didn't feel like anybody else was going through that process. I felt so alone. I felt very isolated. And part of the isolation is that when you're going through awakening, you almost need to look deep within yourself and begin to understand your own issues, your own belief systems, your own density, your personal negativity that holds you back from living your greatest life full of abundance and prosperity. So that isolation is sometimes a part of that awakening process of becoming your better self, because you have to look at yourself in the mirror and look at all the things that no longer work for clearing, your generational patterns or things that you grew up with, but you don't want your children to grow up with anymore. And so you're ready to do it differently. And so the awakening process, and when I mean awakening, it just means, it means something different for everyone. Some people might call it the road to enlightenment or the road to becoming a better person. But really what it is just every single day, you're working hard to change yourself so that you can live a happier life and to get all the things you want and just feel good about it. Sometimes that road can come because of a catastrophic event. So it can come because of a death, of a divorce, of a loss, of, a lot of women who come to me are they're not able to conceive, or they're dealing with a loss of, miscarriage. Those are some of the women I work with. And those deepest wounds are actually the place where the most light can come in, because they make you pause in your life. And they make you start to realize the things that you need to change that are no longer working. And sometimes we live on this polarity planet. So there's going to be a positive and a negative. There's going to be two sides to it. And sometimes for us to know what we want, we have to understand what we don't want in life. So the process of awakening can come as a sudden shift, an alchemical transformation, or it can come from something subtle that makes you change. But it seems like on this planet, on this earth, something really negative has to happen in order for us to awaken on a massive level and on a personal level. And I mean, I wish it didn't have to happen that way. I wish that we didn't have to see the worst of ourselves in order to awaken, but it seems to be the process that I see everyone going through is there has to be a catastrophic event to make a change happen. And we can look at this on a global scale of the way that we're not taking care of our planet and the environmental pollutions that are around us and the toxins. But we can also look at this on an individual level and how we hold those toxins within us and this density of our mental thoughts, our spiritual, our loss of spirituality, and our lack of living our full life. So today I really want to get into alchemy. And a lot of people don't even know what alchemy is, and I didn't know until it started to happen to me. And alchemy is a process where the elements begin to awaken you. And so this can happen on an internal level and it can happen on an external level. So the yogis have a belief system or understanding. So, for example, Ayurveda uses foods to balance the elements within. And you want to get to a sattvic place where the negative and the positive are in a neutral awareness so that you're not reactive either way. And that comes with a balance of these elements. So I often practice Kundalini yoga in order to come to this internal balance, because on this earth, there's 5 elements that can affect our process of awakening and also affect the kind of child you're going to create, which I'll explain in a little bit. In the general universe of what I understand, there's 108 elements. But for the purpose of fertile, when I wrote fertile, I spoke about 5 elements. And I spoke about how they affect you on the inside and how the elements can affect you on the outside to completely shift your life. I'm going to go through a lot of how the elements can affect you on the inside today so that you can understand how you can use them to start to make changes in your process of awakening. And also understand that if you're trying to become pregnant and the element of fire is affecting you on the inside and in your outside world, that element is going to affect your environment, the internal and external environment. And it's going to help to program and, the energy of that child. So for example, the water element. So let's just go into the water element really quickly, and then I'll run through all the elements individually. So water is really emotional. It is a lot of letting go. It causes a lot of dissolution of things inside and on the outside world. So if you're having a lot of water within you, that element running your life and changing your transforming who you are, and you get pregnant at that moment in time, you are going to program that baby with that kind of an energy, that watery depth, emotional, that can be balanced, but can go into a really imbalanced state. And so what we want to be aware of is how we are acting, or how the environment is affecting us and how we're responding to that environment on an internal level, so that we can in turn come into more balance within. And if we're creating a child, or we're about to become pregnant, or we are pregnant, we're programming that child with that same balanced idea, or a same balanced world. What I've just discussed is just an intro of how I'm going to navigate the organization of this podcast. First, I want to define what alchemy is for you and why that affects your transformation and how. Then I will go into each element individually. So first, the definition of alchemy. At some point in your life, you may feel the effects of alchemy, which is a force of transformation that happens in about 8 steps. But today we're going to talk about 4 to 5 of those steps. When your life falls apart, or you feel some sort of a catalyst move you, which a catalyst is a force of change, you are likely in the first step of your alchemical process, which is called calcination. That's the first step in this alchemy of spirit coming in, or internally or externally changing you, is fire. is the element fire. That's the first thing that comes in to actually make movement happen. And this may be an example of this. You may lose your partner. You may lose your health. You may lose your child, your house, your career, or your best friend. And it feels like when you're going through those kind of things that fire is taking over your entire world and your world may feel like it's falling apart. But what's really going on is that you are physically changing to become more dynamic spiritually. So if you look at all these outside events, rather than looking at them as catastrophic experiences, you can look at them as elemental forces that move you on your path and closer to your destiny. And once you begin to embrace these types of changes as an alchemical process, you can move on the path of awakening to your higher self much faster. So, alchemy is one of the fastest ways that I know of to reaching God, or to whatever you may call it, spirit or a higher force on earth. Because it makes you open and it peels you like an onion and exposing all the parts of your life where you need to change. This process creates a lot of clearing. It can clear your generational history, your trauma, your pain, and your heartbreak. It creates an uprooting of everything you thought was safe and stable in your life. Everyone's always going through an alchemical process of change, but not everyone is aware that they are going through it, and nor are they ever aware of what element is affecting their life. So today, I want you to leave with enough information that you become more aware and conscious of, oh, fire is affecting my life, water is affecting my life, air is affecting my life, ether is really affecting me from either the outside, affecting me, changing me on the inside, or internally happening on a combustion level internally, and then thus affecting the external, because as within, so without, right? I'm going to begin by discussing fire in more detail with you, and then moving into water, air, earth, and ether, and how these can affect you on the outside world. And then we'll go into a little bit about how they affect you internally and make you change. So fire is the first step of the alchemical transformation, and it's called calcination, which corresponds to the element of combustion and change and making things move in your life. Calcination reduces everything down to ashes, and it psychologically burns off the density of one's personal or personality and any belief systems that are holding you back from being your best self. When the element fire begins to affect your world, you will lose attachments to the material realm and you will free yourself from your own self deception, because fire vigorously works on the ego and the mind. And so a lot of times when you're running your negative mind and you have so many tight views of seeing the world that create this distorted non-reality, fire is necessary in order to get you a little bit melted down so that your ego can drop and you can connect deeper to God or to spirit. The separation from this false reality and our attachments can be an incredibly painful process to go through. So when you're in the fire, it's it's not easy. It's really, really difficult. So when I was going through fire, I had a massive kundalini opening. And so the kundalini is this natural element that affected me from the inside, but then it started to change everything on the outside. And I didn't like the things I saw about myself. I didn't like to know, that my past was affecting my present. I didn't like to understand all of the, belief systems that are held within my generations of, it could be everyone's family's belief systems are different, but it is some sort of belief system is something that defines you. It puts you into a category. It makes you small, and it makes the world very in a box. And so when you let go of the belief systems like I'm not worthy enough, or women don't work, or men are smarter, or it can be anything, or I am fat, to anything that limits you needs to be burned away, and the element of fire helps to do that. The next element, water, and this is actually how they affect you on the alchemical level. Water is the element creates the process of dissolution in your life. It helps you to let go of relationships and paths that are not meant for yourself, for you, or for those around you. Water cleanses and dissolves the structures in order to create new patterns that put you closer to your destiny. It is a receptive element, so it also helps to form your intuition and enhances your psychic abilities. It's a part of your spiritual transformation that takes you into the watery depths of complete despair and provides a better understanding of all your unresolved emotions that you actually didn't even know existed until your ego showed you all the issues you have with through the fire element, and then your water element comes in and says, can you let all this go? Can you get to your emotional body and heal the emotional body and release that everything that doesn't serve you, so that you can be baptized and reborn from the beautiful and cleansing element of the water. So I'm sure you can think of an experience in your life where, you know, you had something came along, like a divorce or something really, really intense that created a fire under you, a combustion that made you have to change. You were absolutely forced to look at your life and yourself and your ego and who you thought you were in order to change. And so then you go through the process of the change, and then the water element comes in and it sort of helps to cool down the fire, and it helps to dissolve and emotionally fully release whatever you went through so that you can grow into your better self. So we can look at all these things as like, oh, this is a terrible thing that's happening in my life, but it's actually just an alchemical process you're going through to change to become a better person. So after the water element, the element of air comes in like the breath of God. It comes to carry you to where you were supposed to be in life. The wind element can produce dramatic and even unpredictable or sudden changes in your environment. So, a new job, a quick move across the country. So, I moved to Europe. For us, when I went to Europe, the element wind picked me up and put me down in a new place, and I began to travel around the world. So, I was working with the wind element. So, if you need to be, if you need to create a massive change, you can call in the element of wind to help you pick up the pieces of your life and move them to where you want to go. So air is the life force, which helps to move you out of any stagnancy. If you're stuck in stagnancy, you can be sure that the wind element's going to come along to try to get you to move, to try to get you to change, and to make some, because change is inevitable. It's just our reactions to it that actually that are the worst things. So, anytime you're a resistance to this change, the element air will swiftly move through and amplify your emotions around what's holding you back around this change. And air helps to create a separation on a personal level by breaking away the old habits or ways of being. So, if you're afraid of moving and starting that new job, if you are afraid of traveling, if you're afraid of actually like going on an airplane and running through the air, that's the part of transformation that your ego or your whatever's holding you back in your personality doesn't want you to grow towards. So you can know, oh, I'm being affected by the element air right now, and there's something in my life that's stagnant. I'm stuck. I'm not moving. I'm completely, paralyzed and full of phobias and fear of the future. So once you get past the air element, it'll keep on pushing you to move. And same with all these elements, you have to move through the elements in order to get to the next one. And it'll keep on pushing at you to get to those deep residual parts of you that need to be healed. So once you go through the air element, then you will be affected by the earth element. And the earth element is related to conjunction, which is a process of coming together. It's a unification of fully embodying spirit on the human form. And it is a magical thing to experience. I've experienced it on a personal level. I'm still in the process, of course. We're always going through the alchemical transformation. But I've also seen clients come through it. And so, what Earth does, it is active in your life when there's a coming together of the creative and the receptive forces. So, for example, the yin and the yang, the male and the female within you, the union of the male and female, the yin and yang, and the sun and moon are all examples of the earth element coming in together and combining. At this stage of spiritual transformation, you may encounter people outside of yourself who are your opposite energetically. So you may go to work and encounter a a male figure that just opposes you, or a female figure that opposes you. And so what these outside, it's often in relationships, at least what I see is a particularly a relationship between a male and a female, but can happen in any way, is that opposite, that person is a reflection and a mirror of your inner self, and the last things that you really need to work on before you can completely come into balance and into wholeness within yourself. So these outside individuals will help you look at life differently. They help you give an opposite perspective and to help you see yourself better, because, as I said again, they're the mirror experience. So you'll experience opposing forces to become more grounded and in union within. Earth helps to ground and embody your spiritual process and all the energetic changes that you have gone through so far in your awakening. So the earth element gives a time for solid reflection of, the fire, which can be, I mean, for me, the fire element was affecting my life for 5 years. I became pregnant with 2 children while the fire element was working internally and externally around me. And I needed a lot of time to balance from that. So then then I experienced the water element, which caused a lot of a lot of let going of relationships. The water it helps you if you need to release a person in your life. You can utilize the water element to just completely dissolve that relationship or that pain that no longer serves you, or a job. If you're still stagnant, if you still haven't released, then the air will come in. Like I said before, it will come in and lift any stagnancy that's left within your life so that you can move closer to your destiny again. And then again, just to repeat it, the earth element is that grounding force that helps you look back at all this and be like, oh my gosh, look at everything I've done. Look how much I've changed when I recognized that these transformational forces are what's actually making me move and making the entire world move in this magnificent dance with the cosmic force. So on our earth, the final fifth element is ether. And ether uses a higher alchemical process to help you move from the earthly or the three-dimensional realm to a level of understanding of the heavenly realms, either experiencing it on an internal level or externally experiencing heaven around you. And so what that means is there's these higher planes of existence that are not as dense as the physical reality that we see walking around here. So when you are experiencing the ether element in your life, you'll become more open to mystical and mysterious and esoteric secrets of the universe. This may even begin with reading a book. This may begin with hearing the sounds of music or having intuitive dreams. Because as you're going through this process of awakening, you will begin to dream or have coincidences happen, or if you think of somebody and then they call you, you'll be completely surprised, but you'll begin to realize that you create the world around you through your thoughts and your vibration. And that's what all this is trying to do. The process of awakening is just to get you to a higher frequency or a more subtle vibration, that you become the conscious creator of your own reality. So when you're in the ether element, and this is really a lot about what my book Fertile is about. I mean, in Fertile, I talk about how the elements affect you on so much more information on it. This is just really like the icing on one slice of cake. But what the ether is, that you're getting into the esoteric understandings of the universe. And that's the magic, that's the tarot, that's the signs and the symbols, and how everything around you becomes a talking universe. So when I was speaking about my clients beginning to awaken, for example, one recently was having a lot more dreams and prophetic dreams with colors and vibrations, and then the things would happen the next day. And that's because her intuition is beginning to rise as she begins to clear herself out on, the emotional, physical, and spiritual and mental realms. So she began to become more aware of how everything around her is almost speaking to her. And so when this happens, for example, you'll turn on the radio and the radio will be singing a song and you're like, I was just thinking about those lyrics. Or that's the song to the answer of the question I was just asking. Or if you need a color, the color will be representative of the chakra you're working on. Or you may see a symbol and the symbol will open up into an entirely, a new understanding of a problem you've been working on. So for my book, there was three symbols I was given for fertile: a square, a triangle, and a circle. And 2 years ago, when I was given those symbols, I had no idea what they meant. And over the process of 2 years, I awakened and went into the meaning of the triangle, which is all gonna come out with this deeper understanding of sacred geometry when you read the book. But you can take a symbol such as a dove or a repeated thing you keep seeing around you, like perhaps you keep seeing a sign, and you meditate on that symbol, and then the esoteric meaning of it will start to open in your third eye, and you'll have a visceral and palpable but yet a deep understanding of how this symbol is speaking to you from these higher realms. And that's ether. That's a higher level of transformation, and your imagination at that point becomes your greatest tool, because duality begins to dissolve, and you will see that everything around you becomes alive as you become alive, and as above, so below, the alchemists say. It means that anything you do in the higher realms or in your imagination, which is in your meditation practice or the spiritual work you do, actually transforms you on this planet of existence. So your outside world reflects your inside world, reflects your outside world, and so, and as above, so below. So anything you do, again, to repeat, on the meditative level, the spiritual level, the did like dissolving of family contracts, or spiritually, it all comes out to affect the world around you. And this higher ether element, you'll understand that nothing's under your control. And when you really understand that nothing's under your control, a God and a higher consciousness becomes the primary director of your life. And in this phase, you have moved from that density into the subtle realms of existence, and you become lighter. So I wanted to talk about all this because when I begin to work with women and they begin to clear out the emotional, physical, spiritual, and mental issues for themselves and their family, and possibly the child they're going to conceive very soon, is that the lighter that they become and the more density they lose through this spiritual transformation, the more of a sacred container they become in order to hold that child. Because the type of child they're going to attract, if they want to attract a high frequency, high vibration, high caliber being down from these realms, you actually have to create that within your own body now. And what that comes down to is allowing the process of spirit to awaken you through these elements, allowing the elements to internally affect you through meditation, and understanding that you're made of elements, but also understanding how we can ask the elements for help and ask God to spiritually transform us in order to become a vessel to hold these children. So I will go into the elements in a future podcast in a much deeper level, but this is just a general understanding of the elemental forces and what alchemy is, and how each one of them becomes a container for transformation. And if you're going through these elements, don't feel like you're crazy. If you're going through a period where you're feeling incredibly depressed and you're crying and you're letting go of things, you're letting go of relationships, and you feel like everything around you is just dissolving, like you're losing things and everything's getting restructured, just know, oh, the water element's affecting my life right now. I'm not crazy. This is, I can ask spirit to help me get through this and know that once I get through this, anything that's left over, the wind will help me move it along. If you want any help to further understand how to use these elements via a meditation practice or specific meditations of, healing generational patterns or internally or externally changing, please reach out to me at mysticalmotherhood.com. I'm always taking private clients and creating group containers in the future. If you have any questions, please write me at www.mysticalmotherhood.com. I will answer any questions. Again, I'll go through more information on the elements and how they affect you in future podcasts. But this is just an overview and a quick discussion of what I'm going to release in my book Fertile, that'll be coming out in a few months, around May or June 2019. If you like this podcast, please subscribe. And if you really liked it, please leave a number, push the star button below and leave a rating. I can't tell you how much it helps other women get this information of how to create a happier family, how to go through their process of awakening, and how to just become a better person and understand that their awakening awakens their entire family. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed.